20 years ago in February, 20 years ago Valentine's Day last, in my opinion, a very, very important bridge was crossed, and Islam ceased to be a matter merely of its adherents in Muslim countries and became the problem of everyone who lives in a non-Muslim country too. Because on that day, the theocratic head of a foreign state, in this case Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini, offered a large sum of money and a ticket to paradise in his own name to suborn murder. Specifically to suborn murder of a writer of fiction, a friend of mine, named and a former guest of yours, I understand, Salman Rushdie, for the crime of writing a work of fiction in the capital city of the United Kingdom, London. Now, up until now, fatwas, as delivered by holy men of the Shia faith, applied only to members of that faith, or to former members of it, apostates, and only could be implemented in the lands already governed by Sharia. In other words, in the Dar al-Islam, the world of Islam, not in the world beyond, the countries where Sharia law did not apply. By extending his fatwa to include not just Mr. Rushdie, who was a former Muslim, though not a Shia, is a former Muslim, but not a Shia, and to those involved in the publication of his book, in other words, Penguin Books, his agent, his publisher, his editor, and so forth, the Ayatollah Khomeini was claiming to extend the reach of his religion well beyond its adherents and well beyond the lands where it was recognized to be, so to say, the official religion. And it wasn't noticed enough at the time because of the excitement about the sheer audacity of the offer of murder and the offer of a ticket to paradise. This is the first time we began to hear these thoughts that for those who are willing to die in the attempt to commit murder, money and paradise is available with theocratic permission. These are ideas that have now become horribly familiar to us in different forms, but that a transgression had occurred. This was now valid, this kind of talk was valid in London, in Brussels, in New York, in Berkeley, in Rhode Island. And somehow this got itself under the radar. What we now have is the elements of it that can be condensed by me on reflection are the elements of the challenge are these. First, a really believable threat of violence underlies every Islamic criticism of the civilization that is not Islamic. If you want to combat it, you have to know that those with whom you're talking have a revolver in the drawer or under the table, which they may not hesitate to pull on you. It's rather different from the other kinds of discussion that one has to have, or disagreement that one has to have. Behind it is a blackmail, physical blackmail. Second, that behind it is a group of countries called the Organization of the Islamic Conference, OIC, states, recognized member states of international fora, such as the United Nations, who are willing not to threaten this violence directly themselves, but to say that if their demands are not met, they may be powerless to prevent the resort to violence. And the third is, and the most insidious, and the one we may have to spend the most time discussing, is it also represents the claims, the minority claims of Muslim immigrants in non-Muslim countries, and therefore can be, I would say, I apologize for the pejorative, but I'd rather come right out with it than be insinuating myself, smuggled through customs as the demands of a minority, and thus due all the deference that we give to multiculturalism and minority rights. So I'll just repeat for emphasis, a triune challenge in the form of believable threat of deadly force, diplomatic pressure from, in some cases, quite rich and powerful states unified in a bloc at the United Nations, and third, and most hard to confront, minority rights claims of a multicultural sort.